everybody. Welcome back into Debate Night. We've got another great episode tonight. We've had an off weekend as far as the main tour, but we did get some fan submitted topics. You guys really came through. I got to give a shout out. I really made a call to action for the fan topics, and I think there was a good 15 or so that were submitted.
Wow.
Haven't even got a chance to sort through them all. So if you did submit, that you might still get on there. But thanks to everybody who did that. It really means a lot. It makes it a lot more fun prepping the show when I get some feedback. Another thing to mention is the People's Champ poll may in fact be officially broken. It is not exactly looking like it's fair, because I'm pretty sure that Hunter and Brodie led the voting. I think Hunter won, Brodie was second, and I think neither of them were in the finals last week, if I remember correctly. So I think the poll may be officially broken.
Can I give a suggestion?
Yeah.
Why don't the people that actually watch on YouTube post in the comments? Because you're posting it on Instagram, and there might be some people that haven't even watched the show yet.
No, that's 100% what's happening.
Have people just comment down below who wins, who they thought won.
Yeah, we can just switch it to top comment. That's what we're have to do. What I was going to do this week to really put the nail in the coffin was to put Hunter back on the poll.
That'd be good.
He's not on this episode.
That.
But I think we've kind of got it narrowed out, because I mean I'm sure there are plenty of people who just swipe through. Oh, there's a poll, let's vote. So, but in any case, appreciate all you that do go over there and vote, because I can tell you try to sway it in the right direction, but doesn't always work. In any case, let's introduce our guest today. We've got Brodie as always.
I'm back. I'm actually headed to We're all headed to Nashville here in a few hours. Everyone on the show.
Early morning.
But man of the people, I got to give out two top comments that I want to point out. One positive, one kind of makes me look like I don't know what I'm talking about. So shout out to Hannah for understanding where we were all coming from in the comments with the reading in the previous weeks. So much better. So there you go. That's how you take constructive criticism. Hannah kind of dominated. And then this person's told me, Ricky's practice round videos often include practice shots from places he expects he could be in the tournament, not just the lie he has in the practice round. He talks about his thought process for each spot. I said last week, no pros actually really practice from different areas.
To be fair, you said, I have never seen. So
correct.
We're lying.
Correct. I have never seen it, but if Ricky's doing it, shout out to Ricky.
Shout out to Ricky. Didn't win the tournament, unfortunately, but
didn't help him win it. But hey, shout out to Ricky.
Moses is also joining us again, second appearance.
Yeah, I'm glad to be back. Hoping to perform a little better than last time, but thanks for having me back on.
All right, and then we've got a new Ross in the building. Okay, we've had a Ross on before. We got another Ross. So Ross, tell me a little about yourself.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Ross McBee. I'm here in Virginia. I've been playing disc golf. I'm still a relative newcomer compared to everybody else. I started in 2022, so coming up on about 3 years now. But like anyone else, fell in love with the sport. Been following it pretty closely, and I'm happy to be here and talk some disc golf.
Awesome, sounds great. And then Dustin is here anchoring us today, trying to bring home another W.
Indeed, not going to Nashville. Actually, on my way to Romania for a Counter-Strike 2 tournament. So a little bit different,
Right.
esports side of things, but I still know a little bit about disc golf, I think. So
what is going on in Romania? Like,
one of the main companies that operates Counter-Strike tournaments is their headquarters is there. So that's where their studio is.
Real quick, geography. Where is that?
It's in Europe.
Eastern Europe. South.
East of Switzerland?
Yeah.
Yeah. And a little bit south.
What
of
about
that, right?
south?
Yeah.
What about Ukraine?
So
South.
it is southwest of Ukraine.
Southwest of Ukraine. Okay.
It's kind of jammed in there a little.
Yeah.
All those European countries are jammed.
People are sleeping on Romania, I'm telling you. All right. Anyways, let's get into our first topic today. So Kevin Jones took down Gannon Burr to win the Go Throw Tour event this past weekend at Persimmon Ridge. And it's an impressive win for a player who's never quite lived up to expectations. Which MPO or FPO player embodies the idea of never lived up to hype the most for you? And also, do you see a path back for this player, whatever that might look like? Brodie Smith.
So I'll say this is like, with disc golf being as niche as it is, and there really not being that much journalism going on, that many stories going on, it's really hard to overhype up a player. You think of someone like Parker Welk. Parker Welk won a tournament handily. It wasn't like he was gifted the tournament. He went out and took it, played incredible. There was talks of him for a little bit, and then it's just gone, right? It kind of just evaporates. So to try to find people like this, it's actually very hard. I think Kevin Jones is one just because he does have a big personality. And I think he was in content back in the day when there wasn't a lot of content being made. You got to remember this is, now everyone's got YouTube channels and everyone's making stuff. But back when there was just skins and that was like one of the big pieces of content, he was a big person there. So I think a lot of people saw his face. A lot of people were expecting him to do well. I think you can say whether or not you think he has been overhyped. I think he's actually had a pretty good career. I think my name can be thrown in there if you want. I mean, from things I've said and things other people have said, I'm not going to talk about that because I think that's kind of boring to talk about yourself. But I'm going to throw in the highest rated player, August 8th, 2023, Manabu Kajayama. Was the highest rated player at 1056. Everyone was talking about this guy. He comes over after winning 5 events in a row, plays his first 2023 D-Glow, finishes 66, takes a little bit of break, comes back for Worlds, finishes 192nd.
That's a great pick. I didn't expect that.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Anytime you have like the fields from different continents, it's always interesting because I wasn't Jackie Chen another one. Wasn't that his name? The guy
he was also in there, yeah, because he had the Paul Macbeth form,
and like a pretty good disc golfer, but just not as good as his rating was.
Doesn't translate to the American courses.
Yeah. Moses, who do you think fits the bill?
Yeah, so I want you guys to think of an FPO player who is arguably a top 3 thrower of the disc and has been on the pro scene for over 5 years. Some of the smoothest form possible in every single year. And when I think of that, I think of Haley King. Most of us remember when she was making videos with Paul Macbeth and looked like she was going to be the top of the FPO field for years to come. In the past 3 years, Haley King has won 3 events on the Pro Tour with no wins for last year. And a lot of people and a lot of players in FPO, they'd be more than happy with that kind of resume. But Haley, to me, is one of those players that is by far the most talented, especially in FPO. And I really think that's underwhelming. For example, her last win at Maple Hill in 2023, she averaged over 1,000 across 4 rounds to beat Kristin Lott to win. And so I really don't think you can deny the amount of talent that she has, but they're all in spurts. I mean, her form and throwing ability is up there with Evelina Salonen, but that's what the problem is that these are just spurts in a pan, not consistent actual performances out there. In her now 7th year on tour, Haley isn't even sponsored by a disc manufacturer and is coming off several injuries. She's yet to play on the Disc Golf Pro Tour this season and is slated for Music City Open to be her first event. I do think that there's a path back for her. She's only 22 years old, which is relatively young in disc golf. She has a lot more seasons to compete at the highest level possible if she wants to. That's the thing. Can she actually commit to a full touring season, sharpen her mental game, and find consistency on the green? The talent's there. The question is, can she put it all together?
Yeah. One of the big picks there. I did just see the open bag situation, and it's crazy. She's still only 22. I mean, somebody who was in the limelight really, really, really young.
She's been playing for 7 years on tour.
Yeah, since 2019. I mean, I was so I don't
think she fully toured last year, but yeah, she's been around for a while.
But yeah. I mean, that's crazy.
And basically the same player the whole time too. That's the thing. Ross, who makes the list for you here?
All right, so I'm going to have a controversial one here. I'm putting my own spin on the hype, the word hype here. So hear me out. I'm going with James Conrad. So prior to his world championship win, the infamous 2021 Worlds, going back about 4 years, he had 32 top 10 finishes. He had 8 podiums and 3 wins, which also included USDGC, Idlewild, and MVP. Then comes Worlds, the shot heard around the world, the holy shot. Arguably the most hype shot that will ever happen. It gives him the opportunity. He wins Worlds. Since Worlds, up until now, he has 0 wins on the DGPT, and he's only finished in the top 10 12 times. And his lone podium was in a silver event. So it really feels like after that event, really solidified putting him on the map. He really didn't take advantage of that opportunity and has really just fallen flat. I think the field has caught up to him. Unfortunately, there really just hasn't been enough for me to think that he can really bring it back. But that that was his opportunity to make a statement that he was here. He was going to contend not just for tournaments, but for majors moving forward, and that he belonged there. And I think he just fell short a little bit, and the field has caught up. And I just don't see him kind of bringing it back to having those type of opportunities again.
Yeah, that's a good pick. Really fell off the face of the earth because he was a good golfer. I mean, people forget he's
still
two-time
good.
major champion.
He's still good
relative to you and me, maybe.
No, he's still good. It's just there's a lot more people now that are good.
Well, sure. Yeah,
I don't think he's gotten worse.
I wouldn't necessarily make that claim.
I think his 9th place finish, but he's 12 or 13 shots back from the lead. He's now finishing in 30th.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he's the type of guy that's like a lifestyle guy.
Oh yeah.
Like disc golf is like a lifestyle. So like I don't see him being like, I need to wake up at 6 o'clock to get my workout in, to then start putting practice, to then go do it. You know what I'm saying? Like he doesn't have, I don't think he has that. He just has I don't know, disc golf's a lifestyle to him, not so much a professional sport, I think.
Yeah, sure. All right, Dustin, round it out for us. I think yours got stolen, but you have another pick.
I did. I'll just add a little bit of context here to Haley King. I mean, she is proven winner. I mean, she won a 2022 U.S. Women, so she has a major under her belt. She also won multiple other Disc Golf Pro Tour and NT events in that kind of same time span. Also, she was beating the same field that you're playing against today. Like she played against Kristin Lott, Holland, Ella, Evelina, Owen, back when Paige was still very much in her prime. She was beating those people. And I just think she was one of the rare ones that had a complete game. Like the fact that her backhand form was just so solid. She had the distance. I think she had some of the best looking forehand form, period. Forget division. I just thought it looked so smooth. And then when her putt was on, she was really, really good. But I am going to take a pivot now since that was taken. And now I'm going to go for one that y'all probably all forgot about. And that was Heather Young. So Heather Young popped onto the scene randomly in 2019 with a top 5 finish at Idlewild. Then we had the COVID year, which was a shortened season. So didn't get to play too much, but she podiumed at Ledgestone and the MVP Open and really was placing in the top 10 at every tournament that was available to her that year. Then you pivot over and she played a full season in 2021 and she was a consistent top 10 player on tour. And she was a lefty, so we don't have a whole lot of those in the top. I mean, I guess the only one I could really even think of is like Anna Konstantin and like maybe one other one. So the fact that she was a lefty was unique. She had a fantastic putt, a fantastic forehand. And yeah, she didn't have distance, but neither did Owen. And she still found a way to win. I thought Heather still had a lot to prove, but she decided that the lifestyle was not for her. I think she's like a firefighter now or something like that in Tennessee.
Dark horse.
And I just want to kind of give a shout out to Heather Young, one that maybe could have been something, but decided it wasn't for her.
It's a great name pool. Yeah, Heather's an interesting one because like we never really got to see if she was going to live up to the hype because she just kind of decided like things maybe got a little rocky and she was like, hey, you know what? This disc golf thing might not be for me. And I can't remember. I'm trying to remember exactly what was her last season. Do you remember, Dustin?
It was 2022, and she left halfway through the season with like an Instagram post that just basically said that like, "Hey, I feel like I've lost the fire for this. I have other ideas of what I want to do, and
so
you know that kind of thing."
So she was there when the big contracts were getting handed out, and that. So she at least saw that through, and then I mean,
she was on Prodigy, which was historically one of the ones that apparently people were struggling with, and so I wonder if that was part of why she left too. Was she didn't see the money yet? I don't know.
Could have certainly been. Heather Young, a lot of people forget. Great putter.
Really good.
Anyway, so talking about a different FPO player here. We're going to talk about Kristin again. So Kristin Lott just turned heads once again, this time defeating the Jonesboro Open field by a staggering 23 strokes. But she did so in a non-traditional way since the event was formatted as 2 27-hole rounds. Do you think that format works well for disc golf in general? And how much of Kristin's historic performance can be attributed to it? Because it's definitely a bit unorthodox. Moses, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think the 2-round 27-hole format at Jonesboro is interesting, but honestly, I don't think it's something that works super well for disc golf, especially at the professional level. Player fatigue is a real issue. Throwing that many times in a single round takes a toll physically. And I also think on a more practical note, we would never see this on the Disc Golf Pro Tour. Rounds already last 3-4 hours, and adding extra holes would only make coverage more of a grind for both players and fans. So I think it's fine for a one-off A-tier event, but not a standard format. I also want to say Kristin's performance was absolutely unreal. Last year in a traditional 3-round Pro Tour 18-hole event in Jonesboro, she shot 22 down, averaging 10-13, and took on Holland Hanley in a full FPO field. This year, with the event being an A-tier, not on tour, the competition was much weaker, but Kristin still finished 25 under, averaged 10-30, and set the highest event rating ever recorded in FPO. So what stands out for me isn't necessarily the hot scores, it's the dominance. So after one round, her closest competitor was 9 strokes back. In that situation, a lot of players would just ease up, coast in the win, play a little more conservatively. Not Kristin. She kept the pedal down and never let anyone else even sniff the competition at all. And that kind of mental strength is what I really, truly think separates her from the rest of the field. And to be honest, even if this was a full-fledged FPO field, Kristin absolutely still would have won this competition. I don't really think the format gave her any kind of advantage, and the competition didn't necessarily matter. This was just Kristin being Kristin.
My point thing broke. I'm sorry. That's why you probably were like, wow, I really got stuck here. Sauce, I'm not getting, my points aren't happening. You fix me. Bump Moses up 2 points. One for his excellent arguments and another one for sticking it out as he was frozen at 6 points for that entire thing.
I do not look at the points. Can't do it. It stresses me out too much.
Do you know why it got stuck? It happened for a minute with Dustin, and then it fixed itself. Okay, it's working again. Anyways, we'll figure it out. On to Ross. Ross, what do you think about the format? Do you think it had a lot to do with what went down?
In terms of the format, again, I kind of agree with Moses. I don't think that's a sustainable blueprint in the long run for the Pro Tour. Not even just from an athlete standpoint and a disc golf standpoint. Obviously, you kind of risk the injury with the longer rounds and the grind and the toll that it takes. But from a sponsor and vendor standpoint, I mean, that's a day that you're potentially losing out on revenue opportunity there. So I really don't think that's a sustainable blueprint. In terms of Kristin's win, this is her third win at Jonesboro. So it almost feels like this is her backyard. She's done it before. She's very familiar with the course. And with the weekend field, I don't think it would have mattered. Same as Moses kind of mentioned, I think it would have mattered what field was out there or what tournament. She was absolutely on fire. In the other tournaments that she won at Jonesboro, she averaged over 1,000 at those events as well. So she really feels at home there, and I don't think she felt threatened at all. The only thing that honestly really surprised me was Kat Murch finishing in 4th place, because Jonesboro is right there in her backyard. So to see Silva and Rebecca kind of finish above her, that really was the only surprise for me. I think Kristin's dominance, it's just not a surprise to anybody anymore. So I don't think that was any surprise to the field or to us.
Yeah, I mean, there definitely were still some names out there. I was surprised to see Kat as far down as well. Dustin, what stood out to you about the event?
All right, so first things first, I don't understand why there's this need to ever have more than 18 holes at a tournament like this. Make 18 really good holes. Stop shoehorning in other holes for no reason. I guarantee you that if you have this many extra holes, so this time they had an extra 9 holes, some of them are going to be dinker and filler holes that are probably just not worth it. There were 4 holes that were like 255 feet or less, and there were several holes that were scoring 40% birdie or better. That kind of tells me that you probably could have just tidied it up and had an 18-hole course and been fine with it. Also, I prefer 3 rounds personally. Like, I think that is the way that you're going to find the best golfer when you're doing a solo course event on that course. But with that said, this isn't a Disc Golf Pro Tour event. This isn't, something affiliated with like the top tier. It's okay if an A tier or some amateur tournament or whatever the case is wants to do something different. That's fine. The Go Throw Tour, is doing the exact same thing. Maybe it just fits better for people's schedule. If you're a touring Pro Tour player, you don't have to stay there as long. You can get to your next Pro Tour event and just kind of drop in and have fun playing a different tournament. As far as the scoring and like whether it affected Tatar's like performance, no, it didn't matter. First of all, the reason why she did so well is because it was a weekend field. Like, the top players that were there besides her were Rebecca Cox, Katrina Allen, Silva Starnen, and Kat Murch. And then you get to like Maria Oliva and Chantel. And those are some pretty good players, but they're also the type of players that I do expect Kristin to be able to dominate on an in and out basis. And she already had a big lead after the first round. I think if it goes a third round, she probably just wins by more, honestly. Like, I don't think that it being 2 rounds made it better for her or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, fair to say. Obviously, it's not completely unprecedented to see anything dominant there. Brodie, do you see any interest in the long format? What do you think they were thinking with that?
Okay, well, first off, I did reach out to Goose to see like what the heck happened. Why was there 27 holes? Did they replay 9 holes again? And basically, what he told me, it was the same regular 18 with an additional 9 holes. The extra holes, he said, were all pretty bad, just birdie or die kind of shots. He said none of them he thought would have made the actual main course. But the reasoning for this is the TD wanted to give players an extra day to get to Nashville. Didn't realize for it to be an A tier that it actually had to be 54 holes. And so last minute they added those holes so that it could stay as an A tier. So that's why it turned out this way. There wasn't like actually any let's try this format out. Now with the format, there is one benefit, right? Cutting down costs. Like you could hold a 2-day format. So that's the one benefit. But I agree with a lot of these guys on things like, you already struggle having people watch 4 hours of disc golf. How are you getting them to watch a 6-hour round? Also, I do want to push back a little bit. If we're claiming these people to be professional athletes, and let's just assume every hole is a par 4, which most courses that's not the case. There's tons of par 3s on there, but let's assume every hole is a par 4. That's 54 full shots, guys. And you guys, Ross and Moses over here being like, I don't know, these players going to be able to throw 54 shots. It's 54 shots, guys. What are we doing? I will say, though, also a little pushback. More holes are always going to favor the better players. So if you're playing Kristin 1 hole, 1 day, yeah, maybe you could beat her. But 27 holes in the same day, you're probably not going to beat her.
That is a remarkable tournament director move there. I looked around because I was trying to figure out what had gone on, and I was like, is it a weather thing? But like, why would how would you have the foresight?
Yeah.
That is one of the more shocking things I've ever heard.
He was trying to be a good TD, though, honestly, knowing that like his tournament wasn't in the level of importance.
Mm-hmm.
And it turned out,
why do you care to make it an A tier then?
I think there's certain. This would be Hunter would be a.
It's
good
just
person
PDGA points is all that matters. You can add as much cash as you want.
I mean, I imagine
I think there might
the
be
TD,
some other things too, though.
Yeah, I mean, as the TD of that tournament, when you used to be a Pro Tour stop, I'm sure you're trying to be like as highly ranked as you can be.
But
well, there also might be
whole round.
Trevor, there also might be something too. If I remember, some people have a problem getting their events to A tier status. Like you have to be a B tier, whatever, for a while.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering maybe if he was worried, maybe if he dropped down to a B tier, that maybe he wouldn't be able to get an A tier next year. I don't know. There's other things.
Well, he's going to be on the Pro Tour next year, so it's not going to be a problem because they're going to go back. They're going to go back into the schedule, but. Yeah, I don't know. There's a whole lot of bureaucratic stuff with the PDJ, so I wouldn't be surprised. Anyways, all right, we've got some fan-submitted topics now we're going to get into. Once again, shout out to everybody who submitted these topics. This first person says, when does Paige Pierce lose her GOAT status, and how does her dramatic decline factor into that equation? I haven't talked about Paige Pierce in a little while. She's kind of been out of the spotlight. Ross, what do you think?
Yeah, so I want to preface, I think, we live in the present. As a society, we tend to live in the present. And so I think it's very easy to be enamored and, impressed by what Kristin is doing now. But we have to remember that before she came along, it was the Paige Pierce show. She won, obviously, 17 majors. She's at the top of the list. Kristin right now is at 7. So she still has a ways to go. She started her career a little bit later as well. But I think in terms of Paige Pierce's success, I mean, she at the 2019 European Open, she won that event by 17 strokes. And she really was dominant for a very long period of time. It's the same dominance really that I would say Paul Macbeth has had on the MPO field. But I don't think that necessarily factors into her decline. I think, as some of us can attest to on this panel, father time tends to catch up to you. The tour life, it's a grind. And I think additionally, she's coming back from a major injury from a couple of years ago. And I don't think she's ever quite been the same since. There just seems to be a lot of hesitancy in her approach, in her shots. And I don't think that she's really been 100% comfortable since she's come back from that injury. And additionally, I do have to question the motivation sometimes. It just doesn't seem like she quite has that drive that she did when she was winning those majors and having success on the tour. And I think that's really hindered her game a little bit, resulting in the decline. But I don't think it has anything to do or factor into the GOAT status, if you will.
Be funny when she has a disc named The Drive and The Passion as well. There's
Irony.
definitely some irony there. Dustin, do you feel a similar way about the GOAT argument there?
I mean, I think with the GOAT argument, it's always going to come down to like, what are you like really measuring it by? Are you measuring it by someone's overall career, which becomes interesting if they're still having their career and you're not just totally reflecting on the past, or if you're kind of thinking more of like, who do I think is the greatest player right now? And then likely I'm projecting that they will in history be the best of all time. And obviously, if you're leaning towards the more recent side, like who you think is eventually going to be the GOAT, then you are going to pick Kristin Tattar because she is so dominant. 2 world champions, 5 additional majors, had the Grand Slam in 2023, all these additional wins, dominating the field against the strongest field that we've ever had in FPO. And obviously it'll continue to evolve over time, right? And so that kind of depends, right? But if you're going to try to go historical, then, you know, Paige Pierce has the 5 world titles. That puts her right there with Elaine King and Juliana Korver, and she played against a stronger field than those two. Then the closest one would be like Valerie Jenkins, who had like 4 worlds and had 16 majors, I think. So Paige has 1 additional major than Valerie Jenkins. And look, I mean, I know that she had a weaker field in some of her earlier worlds, but I would say like the last 5 or 6 majors that she won, similar field to what we have today. She was playing against Kristin Lott. Yeah, not the same Kristin Lott we had today. She hadn't developed her game yet, but she was playing against this very, very similar field to this field that you see today. And so I think historically speaking, when you look back, you still have to give it to Paige. And the way that Tattar could do it, I think give her like 1 or 2 more worlds and some additional majors, and you value like the strength of field being better today. And then I think she will probably kind of unanimously have the GOAT status in the next few years if she can do that.
Okay. All right. So definitely a path there in your mind. Brodie, you agree with that? Do you think she's just on the way?
No, I disagree with all these guys. I look at this, I guess I'm like one of the few people please let me know in the comments if you guys look at it this way too. When you do these GOAT arguments, they are normally, wow, we never got to see LeBron James play against Jordan. How would they stack up? We never got to see Tiger play against Jack. How you guys are talking like Paige Pierce is super old. You guys say the same thing about Paul, like they're super old. Guys, at what age can you no longer be competitive in disc golf? Like, is this a sport that's like gymnastics where it's like, oh, they're 22 years old, they can't compete in women's gymnastics anymore, they're too old? I don't think disc golf is like that. You look at some of these players, Paige Pierce, and these I think these are right around their ages, might be off by a year. Owen Scoggins, by the way, is 44 years old. Paige Pierce is 10 years younger than Owen Scoggins. So I don't know what we're talking about. Kayla Viska, 42 years old. We were just talking about him last week. The dude is still being able to get top 20s against all these people. Simon, 33. Kristin, by the way, 33, 1 year younger than Paige. Jennifer Allen, who's won on tour recently in the last couple of years, she's 45. Nate Sexton, who has some good tournaments, he's 40. Katrina, who beats Paige sometimes, she's 40. Matty O, who's a top 10 killer, he's 38. Greg Barsby, who's won worlds, he's 38. It's just, I don't understand the people that seem like, oh, father time. They're in their mid-30s. They're not old. They're not old people.
Or do we need to let Moses go first?
And also,
let Moses go first.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I'm going over time just real quick. Take my points away. I don't care. If you look at it, she played 28 events in 2017. She won 22. She played 27 events in 2018. She won 18. Played 26 events in 2019. She won 15. Then COVID comes around. What has changed? Well, 2021, Kona won a tournament. Lisa Fakis, Katrina, Missy, Haley King. And then all in there, you got the Europeans coming over. It's crazy to me. These people are playing in the same era. It's not apples to oranges. It's not, I wish we get to see what Kristin Lott could do with Paige Pierce. They're all in the same era. We're seeing it right now.
All right.
Hey, open your eyes.
All right. Moses, what do you think? What is your take on this?
Okay, so back in early 2024, Paige Pierce was on the Upshot podcast and was asked about this whole GOAT debate. At the time, Kristin was coming off a ridiculous season. She had like 10 plus Pro Tour wins, a clean major sweep, only 4 finishes outside the top 3 all year. Paige's response was pretty telling, in my opinion. She said to argue that she's the greatest is laughable because it was true, but the GOAT debate is a different story. If she has even one more season like that, it is no question. I do still think I'm the greatest of all time at this moment. Well, here we are a year later, and Kristin essentially repeated that season to some extent. I'm not going to say it was as great, but it was still pretty great. She finished 2024 with 7 wins, including a major, and only placed outside the top 3 times. There's no reason to believe that she's going to slow down at any point in time anytime soon, if not better. So by Paige's own logic, the debate is already over. Kristin Tattar is the GOAT. And so, yes, I fully believe that Paige's decline plays a huge role in this, because I think although the field has gotten better, I think Paige as a player has gotten worse. And a lot of that has to do with that injury that she suffered, really nasty. But at the same time, she absolutely was a fantastic FPO player. I remember watching her play with MPO and throw the same shots, putt with the same ability, everything else. I think that she has regressed in a lot of ways. But yeah, Kristin absolutely still finds ways to separate herself most weeks. The only thing that could keep her from solidifying the GOAT status even further is longevity, because she did start her career a little later.
Yeah, certainly. There's definitely a race against the clock there. Dustin, what was your rebuttal?
The rebuttal is this. Anytime that you're going to label someone the greatest of all time, which means the entire history of the sport, I am sorry, but most people are going to look at overall career accolades to make that decision. And Paige Pierce, by definition, has more accolades in the cabinet than Kristin Tattar has. Now, could Kristin Tattar eventually surpass her? 100% she could. But if we're going to do the whole playing in the same era thing, okay, fine. Guess what? They're tied. They're tied in majors whenever they're both in the field. So then what do you want to do? You want us to go by recency and the fact that Kristin's definitely been better the last several years, the Grand Slam of 2023, all that jazz? Cool, we can do that if you want. But I'm just saying the greatest of all time is going to bring in accolades in historical context, not just the then and now or the last few years when you're going head-to-head against Paige and Kristin. That's all I'm saying.
It's a fair point.
Not really.
I mean, they're tied against each other. What do you...
Again, you got to look at disc golf as it's a different animal than other sports. Other sports has been around for a while. There's a reason why Wilt Chamberlain is not ever in the conversation of greatest of all time. There's a reason why certain people like Bill Russell, who has a lot more championships than most people, is also not in the discussion of greatest of all time. The sport changed. The sport developed.
Right.
Disc golf, what it is right now, it's what we're talking about is, if you look at, we've talked about before, if you look at MPO has changed in the last decade, and the FPO field is probably a decade behind the MPO field as far as changing goes. And so, like, you can't really go off of just accolades when they're playing in the same sphere. And you can literally look, how many times has Kristin beat Paige when they've gone head to head? More than Paige has beat her.
I don't know the answer to that question, actually. I know they're tied on majors, and I know in the last few years, Kristin owns head-to-head for sure. But let me just say this. You're right about the Bill. Hold on, let me finish. You're right about the Wilt Chamberlain, the Bill Russell. That's why I'm not bringing in people like Elaine King or Juliana Korver or Valerie Jenkins. I'm talking about someone modern, just like you would talk about someone modern like Jordan versus LeBron or something like that, right? Even though they didn't technically play against each other. I guess technically if you want to go like Kobe versus Jordan, they did technically play against each other the latter part of Jordan's career. So I'm not going way deep into the past and like having to do that. No, I'm talking about modern people. But you still are going to compare accolades at the end of the day. Jordan's going to be considered one of the best because he's got more chips than some of these other people have in the modern era. Like, that is part of the way that you judge it. It's not just about the skill that you see on the screen.
Yeah. It's also about the skill, though.
It is about the skill.
It's
and when Paige wasn't injured in her prime, she had amazing skill. Right now, she's still recovering from that injury.
Yeah, I think the entire argument
if wasn't getting scoring, if he wasn't winning scoring, if he wasn't winning MVPs, if he wasn't winning, if he was
Scottie Pippen that got all those chips and wasn't the star, I get what you're saying.
Some people say, the argument too is, some people say Jordan didn't do crap until Scottie Pippen showed up.
I
That's
think
also an argument.
A lot of this argument really hinges on how much
100%.
emphasis do you place on Paige's downturn in her career, whether you give credit to age and injury or whether you think she just stinks now? Because
let me ask you this real quick, a hypothetical, Brodie. Let's say Kristin wins Worlds again this year because she's looking dominant right now. She gets her 3rd world title, okay? But let's just say 2 years from now, she has a similar decline to Paige Pierce, and she ends her reign kind of right there in 2 years. Then what do? Do you still say Kristin's the greatest of all time? Or do you start comparing her and Paige a little bit differently?
It's a good point.
I think Kristin's already... Wait, say it one more time. Say it again.
So my point was this. Let's say Kristin Tattar, she looks like she's on pace to have another dominant year right now. I think we can all agree to that. Let's say she does win multiple majors this year. She wins worlds. She has 3 world titles now. She's got, let's say, 10 overall majors or something like that.
Okay.
Then let's say after that, we see something similar happen to her that happened to Paige, where she has some sort of decline. Right.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden she's not as dominant as she is now.
Then
who would be the GOAT for you?
Well, she would still be the GOAT, but I'm saying, is a new person coming that's dominating?
I would assume so.
Is she getting dominated by one person, or is there multiple? Because because if one person comes in and does what Kristin is doing to the field right now, then all eyes would be on that person. Like,
sure.
wait, let me just give you an example, Dustin. Let me give you an example. You might show up to your ultimate frisbee local. You just tell me what state you live in. You don't have to tell me the city. You live in Alabama. Okay. You show up to your ultimate frisbee practice and you're the man. Everyone thinks you're the best player ever. You're the greatest. You're telling everyone what to do. You're saying, listen to me. This is how you throw. This is how you do everything. And then all of a sudden, Brodie Smith shows up. And then everyone's like, who's this guy? Oh, my God. Oh, he just jumped over Dustin. Oh, this guy's throwing hammers 100 yards. What is going on? Now, all of their sudden, their perspective has completely changed.
The year is 2010.
My point is like when another person comes, aka Kristin Lott, comes from Europe and now is in the field, all of a sudden our eyes change to be like, wait a second, what we were watching before is not what we're watching now. And that's how the sport is going to continue to progress. We're seeing it in the MPO side. More and more people are throwing farther, not just backhand, but also forehand. It's just developing. Disc golf is very young, small, very young. The other thing that I think also hurt Paige is not that she's gotten worse. Courses have gotten more challenging for FPO. Back in the day, she just played on long courses because the courses were not set up for FPO. They just played MPO, and it was a distance contest. It didn't matter how far, where you threw it. Just throw it far, and you're probably going to win. That's not how it works anymore. If you look at Eliezer, who throws farther than most of the FPO women, and also this other girl that everyone's talking about, Taylor or whatever, they're not doing too well, right? So the courses have changed. And I think that also has impacted how she's played as well. They're not. It's just not throw it as far as you can. Wherever you land, you have a huge advantage over everyone else because you're the only one in the field that can birdie and no one else can. And if you go back and look at those courses, they're playing a lot of those courses on MPO layouts where majority of the field. I don't know if anyone disagrees with me on that, but that's my take on it.
I do slightly disagree, but we can move on.
Yeah, well, that's been a while.
Let me just hear it. Give me a quick disagreement. Let's hear it.
My disagreement with that, and I do just want to say, I do think Paige overall is the best disc golfer I've ever seen. Like at her peak, I think she is by far the best.
In FPO.
In FPO, yes.
Okay.
I think at her peak, like the way she was playing, she was competing with a lot of MPO. Granted, that was a long time ago. There's better MPO players now, but I'm just saying, I'm not saying in tournaments, Brodie. I'm not saying in tournaments. I'm just saying skills-wise. I truly believe that. But your whole take on courses being built for FPO, I think that is completely wrong. I think there are FPO layouts that they have on MPO courses, but for the most part, we are yet to see an FPO tour that actually plays on courses that are truly built for the FPO field.
Well, of course, Moses. But what I'm saying is the courses they were playing were literally courses that Paige could birdie all 18 holes and no one else could. Now she's playing on courses where a lot of the people in the field can birdie all 18 holes. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying the courses are perfect for FPO.
I just think she's gotten worse too.
I do. I truly think she has gotten worse.
I think I might be in the minority of that these days, but like I just think
Paige
she's
got worse. Yeah, 100%. She
has.
Her putting stats are down. A lot of things are down. Yeah,
well,
for sure.
I think when you're at the very tippy top and someone comes in and knocks you off, you have two things to do. You either sack up and put in the work and try to get there, or you just fall over and say, all right, it is what it is.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let us know in the comments. What do you think about the GO argument there? Where is it still sitting with Paige or with Kristin? I think most people have probably moved on, but I'm curious to see what the opinions look like. All right. So one more fan submitted topic here. this fan wanted to know, given how much people care about Worlds and don't care much about the Pro Tour Championship, would it be a better move to cancel the Pro Tour Championship and put all the money and resources into Worlds to grow the excitement of Worlds even more? And then should it be the last event of the year in that case? Obviously, a lot of money in that purse for the Pro Tour Championship, but some different entities at play as well. Dustin, what do you think?
Yeah, I think as far as the Tour Championship goes, I'd rather just make the points leader at the end of the season the Pro Tour champion and give him some type of bonus. And then you can work your way down the rankings however you want as far as spreading out bonus cash. Then you can tie that into your whole All-Stars that you do the next year or at the end of the year, or whatever they're going to schedule the All-Stars to be. You can have like your lead card, your top lead card, your top, ranked players, whatever the case may be, and go on from that. That's fine. But I do think the best way to end a year would be a major. Obviously, right now, USDGC is kind of the one that's scheduled towards the end of the year. And so that can make sense, especially if you can make Throw Pink a major and like kind of combine that with USWDGC or something like that. But I do think that your two most prestigious majors should be one in the middle of the year and one at the end of the year. And then your big one is the one at the end of the year. And so ideally it would be Worlds if you could pivot USDGC more towards the end of the year, if that's possible. Because if you could, then yeah, you would basically be souping up Worlds to be your capstone event. You could build up all the storylines that have been playing out through the entire year, really build content around that throughout, the course of the year, drop little nuggets of content along the way. Then once you get to the major itself, you have all this different content that you can put out there, behind the scenes stuff, interviews, practice, reflections on the past, more cameras if you want to try to do more live coverage, have that big purse so you get that added prestige and get that added weight to it. And then maybe even get that outside non-endemic attention if possible by having this big capstone event at the end of the year with all the big money on the line and things of that nature. So yeah, that's what I would personally like to see happen. I'm not sure how feasible it is logistically, but I do rather to see the Pro Tour Championship just be a bonus at the end of the year rather than an event.
Yeah, I think there are a few people that share that opinion for sure, seeing as what it's looked like in the past few years. Brodie, do you think that would be the way to go?
Well, here's the other thing. I've talked about it. A lot of people hate when I bring up the golf comparisons. A lot of people, and that's fine. It is what it is. But this is one of the things that literally the Disc Golf Pro Tour just looked at what the PGA Tour did and copy and pasted. They said the PGA Tour has a FedEx Cup. They do points throughout the season, and then they have a big tour championship at the end. Let's do exactly that. They even messed around as soon as like the tour championship changed like their point structures of how they were going to run the event. The Disc Golf Pro Tour even said like, okay, well the winner's now going to start at 10 under par. That's what the PGA Tour did. So even though I do say, hey, look at the PGA Tour, let's do more of what they're doing. The PGA Tour did this for money. That is why they did it. They did it because FedEx wanted to be a sponsor of something. They wanted to have something that was important, and they wanted to throw money at it. And the PGA Tour was going to make a lot of money. And literally the only way that they somehow can get people to pay attention and the pros that care about it is that they give out, was it 30 million now or something? They have to keep going up every year, but they give out a crap ton of money. This is just something I don't think that Disc Golf Pro Tour should have taken over from the PGA. We don't have a massive sponsor that is going to do that year after year. I don't think disc golf is there yet. And I think having the Worlds be at the end of the event and that be the big thing that we all talk about going into the offseason would make a lot more sense.
Yeah, that is true. A lot of people don't know the backstory as to why that started in the first place. Moses, what do you think the future of the Pro Tour Championship should be?
Yeah, I mean, my first thing, agreeing with Brodie, the Pro Tour Championship is an exact response to what traditional golf does. I think it's a way of adding structure and meaning to the Disc Golf Pro Tour season in a lot of ways, rewarding players for their consistent play throughout the year. Without it, regular season standings will lose a lot of their weight, and we're left with a tour that builds up to nothing between individual tournament wins. So I think that's why the Disc Golf Pro Tour Championship matters, even if it isn't at the same prestige as something like the World Championships or even USDGC for that matter. But the World Championships, I do think, are really unique to disc golf, and their prestige is based on history, the legacy of past winners, the importance of being a world champion and what that means for like disc sales and everything else. And the fact that it's been in the sport for quite a while at this point. But at its core, it's really just a glorified major in a lot of ways. There's nothing truly structurally different about Worlds versus USDGC or Champions Cup, obviously, the way you qualify for it. But But if the Disc Golf Pro Tour were to funnel all of its resources into Worlds, making it the final ultimate event of the season, it could definitely take on a bigger impact in sports history and importance. But I think that would come a little bit at the expense of the Disc Golf Pro Tour itself. The tour is only going to continue growing, and so will its legacy. It's hard to imagine Disc Golf Pro Tour just scrapping its own championship in favor of Worlds unless they find a way to tie in the tour standings into the World itself, such as like seeding advantages or something else. But then you have a lot of European players elsewhere that may not benefit from that. But as things stand, I really truly think that Worlds is going to carry the weight of the prestige, and the Pro Tour Championship is going to kind of evolve into that.
Okay, yeah, I can definitely see that. Ross, all right, wrap it up for us. What are your thoughts on this topic?
Yeah, so I'm with the majority, and it seems like there's something with the Tour Championship that needs to change. And I don't know necessarily that it needs to be canceled or go away, but it certainly needs some work. And I think, at present, it kind of gives Tour players an opportunity to give something to strive for. It's not just about the majors, but, if you reach that Tour Championship, that's a sign of your consistency and good play throughout the year. And I think that's to be rewarded. And additionally, if you make it to the Tour Championship, you're guaranteed money. So why get rid of that opportunity to make guaranteed money? I think the issue really has been, well, in the last couple of years, the course that it's at Nevin has been a very technical course. It's not the easiest to cover as well. I know that they've had a lot of coverage issues with that. And I think it's just, it seems to lose its luster when you don't get that good coverage and you don't get that feeling of a full field. But those are the top players in the world. So the other part of it is I'm not a big fan of the scoring format. I think I would really like to see the format change to where everyone starts at even and may the best man win in the Tour Championship. I don't like this nonsense of, Gannon starting at -10 and everyone else having to chase him down, after he's having a historic year. So I don't necessarily think it needs to go away, but I do think there needs to be some changes to the Tour Championship. And now that it's finally moving to Lynchburg and Foundation's backyard this year, I'm really anxious to see what changes come of it and what the feedback is when it's all said and done.
Yeah, it's a weird event. I do think, this year there'll be the hype. It's coming to Lynchburg. It's going to go to a new London that's different. So hopefully that attracts viewership. And then, they're also, I think, have some additional plans for some kind of bonus things they're going to add to that weekend. But yeah, hopefully it can gain some steam because, I do think it is. Obviously, it's a ton of money that goes into an event that is not cared. It's cared about very low on the totem pole, at least, of other tour events. So it's hard not to think, well, why wouldn't we just put this money towards events that get more viewership, that sit in better places in the season? But, when you talk about Worlds, well, like that's a PDGA event. The Pro Tour, at the end of the day, they want to...
Unless they own that at some point, they're never going to give up the Pro Tour Championship. And while it's not FedEx money, I don't know if they did get a lot of money from Barbasol to help them be encouraged to try to go that route, or they were hoping to lure a non-endemic sponsor that was sponsored.
The event existed before the Barbasol.
I know, but I wonder if they were trying to build it up to being able to attract someone like that down the line or something like that. And look, I think the event would be more prestigious if it had a better format and if the playoffs were actually felt like playoffs and people were actually getting cut.
Well, we had a better course.
That is
better
the
venue, 100%.
Yeah, that is the big thing too. If the cuts were a little harsher to where
it would be a more
your favorite player might not go to MVP, there would be a bigger deal. But I mean, that happens. We haven't gotten there yet either. So it may be a time thing, kind of like Moses mentioned. This may just be something that has to develop over time and get better each year. So I'm not completely out on it. I think there is at least some electricity watching a couple guys duel for life-changing amounts of money. So that's always going to be exciting to watch. All right, finals. Brodie, Moses, you're in there. Let's get on to it. Moses, would you like to go first or second?
I'll go first.
All right. Wants to go first. Here we go. So the Disc Golf Pro Tour recently announced that the season-long Match Play Championship will finish in a standalone event during the second weekend of November, thus extending the disc golf season even further into the fall. This means our season is now nearly 9 months long. Does it protect the players' livelihoods to extend their earning opportunities as long as possible, or could the tour produce an equal financial opportunity in a shorter timeline that would give players more time to rest or even work a second job, since so many players aren't even full-time as it is? So what's the thought process there? Moses, what do you think?
All right. First of all, I just want to say, speaking about the Disc Golf Pro Tour Championship, it is one of the last events of the season. People don't necessarily care about it, and they're trying to build up prestige with money. And I think that's the same thing with this Match Play Championship. If it goes out and it's the last event in the season, no one is going to care about this event. And in a lot of ways, I think a longer season is going to provide more opportunities for money players, which is crucial, especially considering a lot of people cannot make, a whole ton of money on the tour. But I don't really think that this sort of thing is going to offer, a whole ton of money to those players that are already struggling out there. Even if it does give them a few more chances to cash, I just really think it's going to be benefiting the top pros that there are. So yeah, I think that the tour, if anything, could put more money and could structure the tour out where there's more financial opportunities year round and in a shorter season. Right now, disc golf is kind of creeping into that area of like a year round schedule. And in the past, that's kind of been an option for players if they want to play those 8 tiers and whatnot in the off season. But right now we're expecting the top players to physically, mentally, and financially put themselves out there. And especially if we're talking about really that like below the top 30 players in the world, that is a large, financial burden in a lot of different ways. And a lot of players already struggle with burnout, travel, and the lack of an actual off season as is. So yeah, I really think a break could allow players to reset, work on their game, and a lot of different other things as well. I think if the Disc Golf Pro Tour wants to continue expanding the season, they need to ensure it's actually to the benefit of the majority of the field, not just the top pros who are already going to be, benefiting from, cashing and everything else. If they were structured payouts, increase sponsorship money and make the events more financially viable for like those mid-tier players, they wouldn't need to keep stretching the season longer and longer. So right now it feels like they're trying to maximize revenue at the cost of player well-being rather than rethinking how it'll make a tour sustainable within a reasonable time frame. So yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the match play structure. I think match play is fun, but not in this way.
Okay, well said, well said. Brodie, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I think it's just a supply and demand situation, right? Like they are supplying tournaments and players are showing up to play in those tournaments. They're not having any problems with pros showing up and playing their tournaments. So why not continue to do it? You look at the PGA Tour schedule, they have an event every single month. Their season is a full year. If you wanted to play an event in every month of the year, you could. Now, obviously, you have to like qualify for some of those events, but they have events. And, we're seeing guys, top players, not just guys that are struggling on tour. We're seeing guys that are playing in off-tour events when there aren't weeks going on. So if it really boils down to, I don't know if it's a good idea or not. This is a Disc Golf Pro Tour idea. This is more on their financials. Like, are they going to see a return on investment on, paying their staff to work an extra couple weeks and to do all that when maybe the hype isn't there as far as the audience? Because the players are going to show up. You look at a lot of these guys off season. They're not, the majority of them aren't just like sitting on the couch being like, all right, see you guys in a couple months when the season starts. A lot of them are still playing in events when they can. Obviously, certain ones live in areas that the weather's not great. But if you live in great weather, they're playing in events. They're out playing. So this, I think, is just a supply and demand until players decide, hey, I'm making enough money that I don't actually need to go to these events, and I'm going to not go to every single thing. Then the tour might have to start looking at it like, hey, can we put on an event where only 3 of the top 20 players in the world are actually going to show up? Does that make sense for us to do? But as of right now, players are showing up to everything.
Yeah.
So if that's going to happen, then why not?
Yeah, I agree. It is a weird one where it really comes down to, like how profitable is an event for the Pro Tour? Like, what is the motivation there to like, hey, we actually, the more events we run, no matter how long it runs, is going to be more profitable versus if we ran a shorter season, we make this more of a part-time thing for a lot of the pros. Like, what would that look like? And would it be more profitable that way? I don't know. I mean, it definitely seems like they're moving in the direction of let's make the season. I mean, remember we had the wraparound silver events going on a few years ago. Like, well,
I don't think they make a lot of money actually at the events. I could be wrong.
Yeah. Oh,
but I don't think they make. So I think all their money they're making is sponsorship money, which is live coverage and through Jomez and DGN subscribers. Right. And so is this a play to, hey, can we get more people to stay on and not, okay, tour championship, I don't give a rip about that. I'm canceling my subscription.
They want to keep the lights on the DGN. Like that's definitely the
they
way
want that reoccurring money.
They have very much decided that they are going to die on the hill that DGN is the money source. Now, to be fair, that's professional sports. TV is where the money comes from.
Yes.
But they've definitely decided like that's where the money's that's the well that we're going to go back to, and we're going to figure out how to make everything work for that. So that's clearly where they've arrived, although they might have a new well to draw from if you saw the press release today, and that would be sports betting. Anywho, I am in deep dark trouble with that one. Moses, though, congratulations on the win today. First W. Well done, sir.
Thank you very much. Feeling pretty dark horse out here. Second appearance. Excited to come back.
Absolutely. Got the sophomore victory there. All right, that'll do it for today's episode. If you want to submit another topic to the show, you can scan the QR code on the screen. As you can see, we had 2 featured this episode. We love to feature fan submitted topics. But that'll do it for this week. I'm going to be in Nashville. Hopefully not getting rained on this weekend, and hopefully next week we'll have some fun things to talk about. And we'll see you then.